What if your fish has been waiting for you to do something their entire life and you've never done it? Not because you don't care, but because nobody ever told you it was even possible. Most aquarium owners look at their tank and see decoration, something beautiful to glance at. But science is telling us something completely different. Your fish knows your face. Your fish tracks time. Your fish gets bored, feels optimism, and yes, can even slip into something that looks a lot like depression. And there is one thing, actually several things, that your fish has been quietly waiting for you to figure out. By the end of this video, you will never look at your tank the same way again. Here is what makes this so important. Most fish owners spend hundreds of dollars on filters, heaters, and decorations, but they completely miss the psychological needs of the animal living inside that glass. And when those needs go unmet, something shifts. Your fish doesn't just get bored. Research shows they actually develop a pessimistic worldview. They stop exploring, they stop engaging, and they spend their days in a kind of low-grade psychological fog that most owners never even notice. The science behind fish cognition has exploded in the last decade, and what researchers are finding is quietly stunning. These are not simple creatures running on autopilot. They have stable personalities, emotional states, internal clocks, and a genuine need for mental stimulation. And one of the most powerful things you can do for them costs you almost nothing. Let's start from the beginning. Here is the first thing your fish has been waiting for, and it might genuinely surprise you. Your fish already knows what you look like, not just your shape, not just your shadow, your actual face. In a set of laboratory experiments, archerfish were shown photographs of human faces and trained to spit water at a specific one. When researchers then rotated and altered the images to remove easy cues like hairstyle or head shape, the fish still identified the correct face with remarkable accuracy. These are fish, and they were doing something that even some mammals struggle with. But here is where it gets personal. Studies on common aquarium and pond fish show that they consistently swim toward their regular caregiver and react far less to strangers approaching the glass. This is not random excitement at movement. This is long-term memory of a specific person. Your fish has been building a profile of you. Every time you walk into the room, every time you approach the tank at the same hour, every time you reach for the food container, your fish is updating that profile, predicting what comes next, and yes, looking for you specifically. The heartbreaking part is that most owners never lean into this. They never give their fish anything to recognize beyond the feeding routine. And that is a missed opportunity, because your fish is ready for so much more than that. Now, here is something that will completely change how you think about your fish's daily experience. Your fish is not living in an endless present. They are not forgetting everything every 3 seconds. That myth has been thoroughly dismantled by research. In classic experiments, goldfish were trained to press a lever at a specific time of day to receive food. And here is the key detail. They stopped pressing the lever once that time window had passed. They were not randomly testing the lever all day. They knew what time it was. Even more striking, goldfish that were trained to associate a specific sound with feeding and then released into the wild returned to the feeding spot months later when they heard that same sound again. 5 months later. These are not the forgetful creatures we were told about. Your fish is tracking time. Your fish is building expectations. And if you pay attention, you will notice that your fish is already doing this in your tank right now. They queue up at the feeding corner minutes before you arrive. They are not reacting to you. They are anticipating you. That means your fish is waiting, literally waiting. And the question is, what kind of experience are you giving them while they wait? Let's talk about something most aquarium guides never mention. Your fish has a personality, and that personality is stable, measurable, and deeply connected to their emotional well-being. Studies on guppies show a consistent shy-bold axis. Individual fish repeatedly respond to risk in the same way across different situations and different days. The timid fish that always hides during feeding is not broken. That fish is expressing a stable personality trait, the same way a shy person does not suddenly become outgoing just because you change their environment. But here is where it gets genuinely fascinating. Researchers have developed what are called judgment bias tests for fish. The idea is simple. You train a fish to associate one signal with a reward and another signal with something unpleasant. Then, you show them an ambiguous signal somewhere in between. An optimistic fish will approach it, expecting good things. A pessimistic fish will avoid it, expecting the worst. And in zebrafish, these patterns are stable over time. Some fish are chronic optimists, others are chronic pessimists. And here is the part that should matter deeply to every fish owner. The research shows clearly that enriched, stable environments push fish toward more optimistic choices. Chaotic, barren, unpredictable tanks create pessimistic fish. Your tank setup is not just an aesthetic choice, it is directly shaping your fish's emotional baseline. Every day. And this brings us to one of the most powerful and least used tools in fish psychology. Your fish needs something to do, not just space to swim, something to actually engage with. In a beautifully strange study of a cichlid species, researchers observed individual fish repeatedly ramming a bottom-weighted thermometer, letting it bounce back, and then hitting it again. No food was involved, no territorial threat, no mating behavior, just a fish playing with an object because it was interesting. This behavior met the formal scientific criteria for play, and it was not a one-off observation. Across multiple species, researchers found that around 88% of fish showed voluntary interaction with moving laser dots, chasing and biting them in patterns that closely resemble how cats play. Your fish is not just waiting to be fed. Your fish is waiting for something interesting to happen. And in most tanks, nothing interesting ever does. The fix here is simpler than you might think. Puzzle feeders are one of the most underused tools in the hobby. Studies on guppies found that once their hunger was satisfied, many of them voluntarily switched from a simple feeder to a puzzle feeder that required problem solving. They chose the challenge. They sought out the mental work. And female guppies in these tests showed an even stronger attraction to puzzle feeders than males, hinting that in your community tank, the fish you might least expect could be the one craving the most stimulation. Here is one that is going to sound strange, but stay with me, because the research behind it is solid. What your fish hears matters. In laboratory studies, zebrafish exposed to classical music, specifically Vivaldi, spent significantly less time hugging the tank bottom, moved more freely, and showed measurable reductions in anxiety-like behavior compared to fish kept in silence or exposed to random noise. Classical music in zebrafish has been linked to improved metabolism, altered physiology, and reduced negative impacts of social isolation. This is not a fringe idea. Husbandry guidelines for research fish now explicitly list classical music alongside plants and shelters as a form of environmental enrichment. Soundscapes are being treated as part of welfare design, not decoration, not background noise, a legitimate tool for your fish's psychological health. Think about what your tank sounds like right now. The hum of a filter, maybe silence, maybe the noise of a television nearby. Your fish is experiencing all of that, and according to the research, what they hear is shaping how they feel. A small speaker near the tank playing something gentle and structured could be one of the simplest upgrades you ever make for your fish's quality of life. Now let's talk about something that quietly affects your fish every single day, and most owners never think to adjust it. The physical environment of your tank is not just about aesthetics or water chemistry. It is about cognitive load. Studies on fish in regulated rivers found that individuals remember which areas of their environment have been stressful in the past and adjust their long-term habitat choices accordingly. They avoid patches that previously left them stranded. They hold on to that information. They use it. Inside your tank, your fish is doing something similar. They are navigating micro-preferences about current, depth, and shelter that you may never have considered. Research on flow specifically shows that constant strong currents force fish to burn excess energy, leading to stress and suppressed growth. Calmer, more controlled flow allows them to conserve energy and stay healthier. And temperature matters more than most owners realize. Studies on coral reef damselfish and other species show that chronically elevated temperatures impair learning and memory and increase stress markers. A tank that runs even slightly too warm is not just uncomfortable for your fish, it is making them cognitively slower and more anxious every single day. Your fish cannot tell you when something is wrong with their environment. They just live inside it. And the research is telling us that the details we tend to overlook, the current strength, the temperature consistency, the presence of hiding spots and varied terrain, are exactly the details that determine whether your fish is thriving or just surviving. There is one more thing worth understanding before we close, and it ties everything together. The emotional state of your fish is not fixed. It is not determined by species or tank size alone. It is actively shaped by the choices you make as an owner, sometimes in ways you would never expect. In studies of convict cichlids, females forced to live with a non-preferred mate showed measurable pessimistic judgment bias. Their entire interpretation of the world shifted negative because of who they were housed with. Females kept with their chosen partner behaved more optimistically. Even the social dynamics inside your tank are shaping your fish's baseline mood. And in cichlid aggression studies, non-territorial males who witnessed aggressive interactions redirected their stress toward real tank mates, a pattern of displaced aggression that mirrors what we see in primates under social pressure. Your tank is a social world, and the relationships inside it, between your fish and their environment, between your fish and each other, and yes, between your fish and you, are all part of a living psychological system. So what does all of this actually mean for you? It means that the fish in your tank right now is more aware, more emotionally complex, and more in need of your attention than almost anyone has ever told you. Your fish recognizes your face. Your fish tracks time and waits for you. Your fish has a personality that can tip toward optimism or pessimism depending on the world you build for them. Your fish plays. Your fish gets bored. Your fish listens. The things they have been waiting for are not complicated. A stable routine, a puzzle feeder, a varied environment with calm flow and appropriate temperature. Maybe some Vivaldi playing softly near the tank. And most of all, an owner who understands that what is inside that glass is not decoration. It is a mind. If this video changed the way you see your fish, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more owners who want to understand what their animals are actually experiencing. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper into the psychology of the pets we share our lives with. And leave a comment below, telling me something you noticed about your fish that you never had a word for before. Because I think a lot of you have been watching something remarkable without realizing it.